What's really causing your anxiety? This video will explore root causes for anxiety, then of course, how to begin to heal. To get started, before we understand what could be causing our anxiety, we have to understand the new science of epigenetics, or simply, we are not our genes. For a very long time, we believed that things such as anxiety and panic were caused by the DNA or the genetics we were born with at birth. We now know that genetics are, of course, part of the story, though our lifestyle choices, our environments play a great role in whether or not we get the symptoms of anxiety or the more extreme version of panic. So what are possible root causes then for anxiety? The first one we want to explore is trauma and the related dysregulation in our nervous system that happens when we experience trauma. No matter how far distant in our past, many of us are living with an activated fight or flight response, which causes the same symptoms of trauma. Being hypervigilant, feeling our heart rate increase, always waiting for that next shoe to drop, maybe even scanning our environment, looking for the next threat, feels very much like what we call anxiety. Again, that is the result of our nervous system being ready for action, being in fight or flight mode. Again, no matter if there is no threat even present. That means that some of us have experienced trauma early in our lives and never actually shifted out of that nervous system state. So we walk into adulthood far beyond the years of the traumatic experience, still living with those same symptoms. I know for myself, that was very much part of my story. Something else we want to explore are lifestyle choices that may be causing the symptoms that we call anxiety. What do we mean by lifestyle? We mean, what are we eating? We now understand that our gut plays an incredibly important role in our mental and emotional wellness. Why is that? Our gut is also where we produce the majority of our serotonin. Serotonin is the #1 neurotransmitter that's been implicated in anxiety. The belief is we don't have enough serotonin, you get symptoms of anxiety. Now again, we used to think serotonin was produced in our brain. We now know that our gut produces the largest majority of serotonin. If our gut is damaged, if we're eating foods that cause or poke holes in our gut wall, we might be compromising the functioning of our gut, not able to absorb the nutrients and not producing the serotonin that we need, thus resulting in anxiety. A third thing happens when we cause damage to our gut. Toxins can leak out into our system, causing inflammation. Inflammation can again cause symptoms of anxiety. Many of us aren't even aware that the food that we're putting in our body is not only not nutrient dense, it might actually be causing that gut damaging holes, and again, the inflammation that's causing our symptoms of anxiety. Another incredibly important lifestyle choice that might be contributing to your anxiety is your sleep habits. Namely, those of us who aren't sleeping enough. When our body is not rested, we can feel in our bodies those same symptoms that mimic anxiety. Movement. When we don't move our body, tension builds up in our muscles, and we register that tension as anxiety in our body. Learning how to move our body in slow, gentle ways, even activating our parasympathetic nervous system through things such as yin yoga can shift us from that fight or flight mode that we talked about earlier to the opposing mode, the calm mode of the parasympathetic, thus decreasing our symptoms of anxiety. Another incredibly important lifestyle choice to speak about that some of us aren't even aware is a choice is our breathing. When we breathe from a very shallow place, or when we breathe very quickly, like we do when we're anxious, we might be contributing to our symptoms of anxiety. First, tuning into how you're breathing can be incredibly important in taking the next step, learning how to shift your breath deeper into your belly. Slowing or elongating your exhalation can actually shift you from that fight or flight mode, causing those symptoms of anxiety, back into that parasympathetic mode of calm. Another thing we want to talk about is our hormones. Hormones, in particular, our sex hormones, the amount of estrogen we have or testosterone can contribute to our symptoms of anxiety, as can a newly discovered mutation that affects some of us, which is the Murther gene, MTHR. Those of us who have that genetic mutation aren't able to absorb those B vitamins that we talked about earlier. Again, contributing to low enough B vitamins that amplify the experience or the symptoms of anxiety. Now, how do we begin to create change? How do we do the work? I just gave a lot of different choices, lifestyles that we might be living that might be causing our symptoms of anxiety. We don't want to start by changing our life from top to bottom because we'll overwhelm ourselves. The way forward is to pick one new small daily promise in any of those areas we explored earlier. For some of you, it might be sleep. For others, it might be paying attention to your breath, noticing that you're breathing from that shallow place, or you're breathing very quick. Shifting into what I call a deep belly breath will help you come from fight or flight and all of the anxiety, maybe even panic that goes along with that, down into that state of calm that all our body needs. For me, I know for a very long time, my life was filled with anxiety. My 20s were filled with one panic attack after another. I took the same road. I began to look at the choices I was making each and every day. I was able to identify that my nervous system was in fight or flight. I was able to identify the fact that I wasn't eating foods that were giving me the nutrients I needed, and I was eating foods that were causing inflammation that sent me down that cycle of anxiety for decades. So I began the same way. Making one small daily promise to create change changed my lifelong experience with anxiety. I'd love to hear from those of you out there who are beginning your journey to explore the root cause of your anxiety and, of course, to begin to heal.